You're listening to the Tom Green Podcast. Earlier this year, right before this pandemic happened, I was walking down an empty beach in Costa Rica, in a very remote part of the country, and I saw two Americans standing on the beach, barbecuing on a Weber grill, and I thought, I'm going to say hi to these guys. And it turned out Seth Beaudreault was one of them, who is a naturalist who lives part-time in Costa Rica, but also is now living up north in way northern Alaska in an outpost where they are observing wildlife and documenting it. And it is a very, very interesting conversation that I have with Seth. You can follow Seth Beaudreault on Instagram. The spelling is in the description on this post. And have a look at some of his photos. He has just recently encountered so many interesting animals and things up there that he's documenting with photos on Instagram. Go have a look at that while we talk, and it will be a nice visual audio combination. I think you'll enjoy it. A great conversation from snowy Alaska with Seth Beaudreault. How are you, Seth?
I'm good. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing great. You know, I think even a better question is, where are you?
I'm 30 miles north of the Brooks Range in Alaska at a place called Toolik Field Station.
So that sounds like the middle of nowhere. Is that pretty remote?
It is. It's about 370 miles north of Fairbanks and about 130 miles south of Dead Horse. So it's on the Dalton Highway, also known as the Hall Road, which I think has been in ice road truckers, maybe.
Yeah. Wow. Dead Horse. That's a pretty ominous name for a town. You know, I guess somebody probably rode their horse to death up there one time a couple hundred years ago, and they named a town after it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also known as Prudhoe Bay. It's basically just where the oil field infrastructure stuff is. Okay, so listen, I've told everybody to go to your Instagram and to your website, and you're taking beautiful pictures up there of animals and wildlife. But tell me and our listeners, what exactly are you doing up there, Seth? I work as the naturalist for this science station here run by the University of Alaska. So I am documenting wildlife and when the snow goes away, the plants as they grow through the season, whether we just basically collect baseline environmental data to have a record of it for the future. So it's kind of long-term environmental studies, and my job in particular is going out and covering different types of habitat every day and photographing and writing about the mammals and birds and everything that are around.
So when you're up in this remote and beautiful part of the world, and you're going out every day, out onto the range, out into the woods, out onto the tundra, I don't know what it's called up there, but wherever you're going, you can tell me what it's called in a second, but wherever you're going, are you seeing a lot of animals every day? I mean, I'm following on your Instagram, there's this beautiful lone black wolf, this lynx type cat, this incredible animals on your Instagram. Are you seeing a lot of animals, a lot of wildlife every day?
This time of year, I could drive huge distances and see barely anything because spring is just barely getting started here. So that wolf in particular has been around for the last couple weeks, and I've just seen it a couple times, maybe 3 or 4 times. It's seems to be alone. It's killed 2 caribou on its own.
Wow.
So that's been really incredible because there's been years before where I never even saw a wolf up here. So it's been really special to have been close to this wolf and to see it making a run at some caribou. And the one photo you'll see that's in a blizzard. It kind of just appeared out of this blizzard for a few seconds and then disappeared back into the blizzard.
And it's looking over its shoulder directly at you, almost like some sort of a ghost or something. It's just kind of an incredible picture that you've taken.
Yeah, thanks. It was I had about 40 seconds before it disappeared again, and was kind of fumbling with the camera trying to focus on the wolf and not getting caught on the snowflakes in between because it was a pretty heavy blizzard.
So are you living in some sort of a log cabin up there, or what kind of facility are you in?
It would no, it's kind of modular units, I guess, and some buildings that have been built here by the National Science Foundation. It's a pretty big science camp that has up to 120 people during a normal summer. But right now, because of the virus, we're kind of on a skeleton crew of 12 people who are going to be here through at least June, and nobody coming in or out. Aside from a couple food deliveries.
So you get up in the morning, you go out in a truck, I guess. Do you venture off into the wilderness? When you saw this wolf, where was that? Were you just near your camp, or where were you exactly?
Yeah, I had gone out that morning, and the blizzard was so bad, the road was in terrible condition, so I decided to turn around and head back. And about a minute after turning and heading back, suddenly I saw that wolf there, so I pulled over and got out and had my little moment with it, and then it was gone.
It's really beautiful. I really want to encourage everybody listening to look in the description of this podcast, in the bio of this podcast, and you'll see Seth's Instagram coordinates, and go look at the pictures while we talk about them. I want to talk about the wolf for a little longer. I want to dive into that for a second. So, is it normal to see the same wolf over and over? Does it live nearby? Why do you keep seeing the same wolf, and why is it by itself? I thought wolves lived in packs.
Yeah, wolves will occasionally either be kicked out of or venture out of packs on their own, and it's not common that I'll see the same one like this. There's one pack to the south where I saw 4 wolves the other day, about 10 miles to the south. But here, right around camp, I think we've just been lucky that the caribou were around the camp and that this black wolf happened to drag a couple down.
Is that normal
Is
that normal for a single wolf to be able to take down a caribou? That seems like that'd be kind of a pretty difficult thing to do.
Yeah, it's a pretty beastly wolf. So I think it's just a prime specimen of the species that's just out here doing its thing on its own. It's pretty incredible, really.
Now, at what point when you're standing there alone in the wilderness and there's this wolf that can take out an animal much bigger than yourself, do you start to feel afraid?
I've never felt afraid of a wolf, and I've had them run towards me from a long ways away when I was really in the middle of nowhere, sitting on a rock doing a bird survey at 3 a.m. And as soon as I stood up, the wolf kind of veered off to the side and trotted around and then took off. So whenever I've seen them, they've always acted way more afraid of me than I am of them. And it's so rare that anybody in the world gets attacked by wolves. So they really don't want anything to do with us.
So they're intelligent enough to know, maybe through experience, that human beings are a predator to them, and that they need to avoid us. They aren't afraid of a caribou. They know a caribou is not going to, hurt them. But I guess they know that humans will.
Yeah, some of the wolves around here probably haven't seen humans before. But yeah, they definitely, we're a strange shape to them. They're not really evolved to know what the heck we are. So I think we kind of freak them out a little bit, and they just decide it's better to get away from us. But caribou can hurt them. It's risky for a wolf to attack a caribou, especially on its own, because they could take a hoof to the face, and wolves get killed attacking large ungulates like that. So that's why this one is particularly impressive.
Yeah, I was going to ask if it's kind of like, the Galapagos, when Darwin discovered the Galapagos and all the animals came out to greet him like they'd never seen a human being before, and they weren't afraid of the human beings. I don't know if they came out to greet him, but it sounds cool that they came out.
Like that scene in Ace Ventura.
Yeah, exactly. Is there some truth to that up there, that the animals don't recognize humans, so you can get closer to them? Because there's a photo here. Is this a lynx, or it's a lynx? A lynx. It's the latest photo, and you are so close to it. You say that you can see your own reflection in the eyes of the lynx. How close are you to this cat, and why did it let you get so close to it?
That one was day before yesterday, and I saw it from a couple hundred yards away, I think. It was kind of crouched in the snow, bedded down underneath the Alaska pipeline, which runs through this area. Yeah. And so I started taking photos and just taking a few steps at a time, and then take a few photos, take another few steps. And eventually every photo I took, I thought, okay, this thing is going to spring up and run away. And as I got closer, it started kind of bunching its feet under itself and facing me. And I started to think, is this thing going to jump on me? Because I got to within probably 8 to 10 feet. And this thing is at times staring at me really intently. At times it looked up at a raven that flew by. So we were just kind of sizing each other up, I think. And the ruffling of my coat, because it's totally silent, and it was like 1 degree Fahrenheit. So the air is super still, super cold. So everything that moves makes a sound. So eventually me bending down to try to get a photo at eye level, the lynx had enough and just stood up and kind of ambled off into the distance.
What's a moment like that feel like? Do you feel like you're communicating with this animal? Is there some sort of an unspoken connection between you and the animal when you're sitting there staring at each other in the middle of nowhere? Is it as curious about you as you are about it?
I think so. It's definitely a powerful feeling. I feel really fortunate to be able to have these moments. I know not a lot of people get to have them, but there's a great quote by a writer, Barry Lopez, about locking eyes with a wolf, and it's the wolf exerts a powerful influence on the human imagination. It takes your stare and turns it back on you.
And so you felt that way with the lynx? Did you feel it was it attempting to communicate with you in some way, or was it just staying still because that thought maybe if it didn't move you wouldn't see it, or what was going through the lynx's mind when you took that photo? What do you think it was thinking?
It's hard to say, and I definitely don't believe much in communication between us, our species, with theirs, but I think it was looking at me, trying to decide whether I was a threat or whether I was just kind of wandering through the area like a caribou or something else that it might not typically attack or have to run from. So, like I said, at times its gaze would drift off to something else, so it wasn't super concerned with me. I think it could tell that I wasn't. If I was going to go for it, I would have ran straight after it, right?
You have a picture of a grizzly bear here, a large grizzly bear. Where was that taken?
That was a little bit to the north of here last year, maybe. Can't remember when that was, but
it's standing up on its hind legs. It's got its cubs with it here. Oh yeah, there's a picture of its little cubs if you scroll. I mean, Isn't that the most dangerous situation to be in when you're around a bear with its cubs?
Yeah. But even they will typically run away, and the landscape up here, you had speculated on it a few minutes ago, but it's open tundra with few shrubs and there's no trees or anything. So you can usually see something like a bear from a great distance. And so when they see you, they'll typically run away. I'm definitely more afraid of a bear than I am of a wolf, but up here it's pretty easy to avoid getting close to one. It would take a lot to be surprised by a bear up here. And there's not that many bears up here. It's such a kind of barren landscape that not that many can live within a small territory up here.
You sent me a photo. It's not on your Instagram, but you sent it to me of was a hawk swooping down on a fox. That was a beautiful shot. Are you going to post that one?
Yeah, I should. It was so far away that I thought the photo wasn't such a high quality photo, but it was a really amazing moment to have been there for. There's gyrfalcons that breed in this area, and that fox had kind of wandered into an area where they have a nest, and suddenly the gyrfalcon took off the cliff and started dive bombing at this poor fox that just happened to wander into the wrong place.
So, just to get a little bit more into depth about why this research is being done, is this for conservation purposes? And what can we learn from all of this documentation that you're doing up there?
This is just baseline environmental data. So we basically collect all the weather throughout the year. We collect when the snow melts off, when the lake ice melts off, when the bird species come into the area in the spring, when they leave in the fall, and when the plants bloom and flower and everything through the summer. So by collecting that year after year after year, eventually, you have decades of data where you can detect if there are trends of anything going up or down or changing in time. So it's all just basically collecting data, not making conclusions about it ourselves, but just collecting the data so that it's there as a record for the future to look back on and compare against.
But if you were to make some kind of conclusion or an opinion on this, based on the data that you've seen over years and focusing on this, are we seeing a drop in species up in that part of the world, that far north? Is it being affected by global climate change or environmental changes or the Alaska pipeline, or how are we looking up there?
It's definitely a place of a lot of change. Some of it is good for some species and bad for others. Like as things warm up, red foxes are able to live further north, but when they get further north, they encounter Arctic foxes and kill them because the Arctic foxes are a lot smaller. So it's good for red foxes, bad for Arctic foxes. And then shrubs are able to grow further north, and so that allows certain types of sparrows to breed further north and kind of expanding their range. But then it also makes really volatile weather. So in the spring, all the snow can melt off and all the migratory birds will show up, and they're coming from the lower 48 states and as far away as Central and South America. They get all the way here, start to build nests and lay eggs and breed and everything, and then suddenly winter can kind of come back suddenly and drop 6 inches of snow and cover all the birds' nests, because a lot of them nest on the ground, and destroy the whole breeding success of almost an entire species for that season. So some species can make a second nesting attempt, and some just give up and call that a wrap for the season. So with volatile spring times like that, it's definitely not good. But I monitor breeding density and abundance of the most common species during the summer, so eventually we'll be able to see if it's having a measurable effect.
But there's not, we hear talk about a mass extinction event that they're predicting in the next, 20 to 50 years. You're not seeing any evidence of that, like a dramatic drop-off of all species. There's still lots of animals up there. Is it sort of part of a natural cycle when something like that happens, or is there definitely cause for a great alarm?
Up here, I think I'd hesitate to be super alarmed just because I've been working here for 10 years, so that's not a long enough time to be able to say anything for sure. These are such long-term kind of phenomena that we're talking about that personally, I'm not in any position to really speculate on it. Generally, things are doing pretty well up here, but we're also pretty isolated from everything else that's going on in the world. So that was one thing I was enjoying watching that wolf run after caribou, was just thinking, this wolf has no idea that what the human race is dealing with right now. And up here, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of cool that things up here are just kind of going along like they always have.
It doesn't know about the virus. It doesn't know about the rat race of the daily life in the modern world. It's living the same way it's lived for thousands and thousands and thousands and, hundreds of thousands of years? How long have wolves been around?
That's a good question. I don't know. Quite a while.
A long time. Yeah, it must be just a beautiful thing to be able to live up there and experience that during this pandemic, to feel isolated from all of the scary stories that we're hearing, and certainly the virus. There's no indication of any virus up there right now. Everybody's healthy, and you're not having to socially isolate, I guess, because you're around 12 people and nobody's sick. Is that true?
Yeah, we in a couple of days we won't social isolate anymore, but we actually have been until everyone who's here will have been here for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we are being really careful. We're still using gloves when we get food in the kitchen and stuff like that, and But yeah, in a couple of days, we'll have all been here for 2 weeks and we can start to relax a little bit. And we all isolated for 2 weeks in Fairbanks before coming up here. So we're definitely being really careful about it.
And who are the people that are there with you? Are these other scientists or researchers? And do you know them all? And what's that like? What's the day-to-day life being up there with everybody?
Yeah, there are some people who are just basically keeping the buildings going, generators going, basically keeping the station alive and fixing things, a couple of mechanics. And then there's a few scientists who, like me, are keeping, since I mentioned before that usually there'll be up to 120, 130 people here in the summer. So none of those people are going to be able to come here until at least July at this point. And they all have these long-term projects that they've been doing for decades, some of them. So the few scientists who are here right now are going to be helping to do some of the work that those people would have normally done since they can't get up here. So it's kind of keeping a few long-term projects going with a minimal-sized crew. So we're lucky to be here and lucky to be employed. And yeah, it's all going really well so far. Everybody's really great people. So
is it fun? Do you guys have parties? Do you have dinner parties? Do you drink beer up there? Is there wine? Do you play music? Is there a guitar, or is it all very serious?
It's not very serious. As I get older, I would much rather just read a couple chapters in a good book and get a good night of sleep. But people hang out, and we watched Uncut Gems a couple weeks ago. That stressed people out pretty badly, but I really liked it. So yeah,
I'm not familiar with what is Uncut Gems again. What is that? I'm unfamiliar with that.
That was the recent Safdie brothers movie that Sandler was in.
Oh, yes. I haven't seen it, but a good movie. Yeah, I love Adam Sandler. Obviously, everyone loves him. That's cool. That's funny to think that you're watching Adam Sandler movies up there in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah, and I have a guitar. I've got a drum set up here that I haven't actually touched in a year or two. But yeah, so there's some talented people that come through here once in a while, and people will get together and play music and stuff. But right now, I'm just concentrating on spending as much time as possible outside every day to be able to see this stuff. And especially now, the first migratory birds are starting to trickle in. So a bunch of rough-legged hawks yesterday. So things are really going to pick up. Like right now, I'm only seeing 7 bird species in a day. And within 3 weeks, I'll be seeing 50 or 60. So when spring comes alive here, it comes on really, really fast.
So some of these birds are just birds that don't exist anywhere else, or do they all migrate down south here? What kind of birds?
There are a few species that stay here through the winter, like willow and rock ptarmigan, that are little grouse-like birds that turn white in the winter. Gyrfalcons just stick it out through the winter. It's a big falcon that preys on ptarmigan. Ravens stay up here through the winter, and that's pretty much it. So everything else that'll show up, I think we've had about 125 species in this area total over the years. A lot of those are little Wilsons and yellow warblers coming from Central America. Arctic terns are coming all the way from the Antarctica. And
why do they do that? I know I've read about this before, but I just kind of think about, why do they do that? Why fly from the Antarctica to the Arctic and then back to the Antarctica? Why don't they just stay in one place? Are they looking for food? What's the point?
Yeah, it's an age-old question.
It just seems like a long way to go, you know?
It is, especially like, imagine a Wilson's warbler. It's this little yellow bird with a black cap. It weighs 8 grams, and they'll fly from Costa Rica up to here and stay here, survive the breeding season, avoiding predators, and then fly all the way back to the same exact area down in Costa Rica. So it's a big risk migration. A lot of them die during it, but I think because there's few predators up here, it's a good place to breed. I don't really know how it evolved to be that way because
So
it
they
is a pretty
breed up
ridiculous
there,
term.
but then they can't spend the winter up there because it's too cold, so they got to go south. But why go all the way to Costa Rica? Why don't they just stop in Texas or something?
I don't know. That's just how it is. I think a lot of those birds actually evolved down in the tropics, and this migration became part of something they did along the way since they evolved.
So what's the lifespan of a bird like that, and how many times does it do that in its life? They live 10 years, and they do that every year for 10 years? Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
I think if a little warbler like that makes it to 6 years, that's pretty remarkable.
So in 6 years, once a year, it flies from Costa Rica to Alaska and back, and it does that 6 times, and then it dies. It sounds like being a human being, pretty much. Just a pointless 1 foot in front of the other, and then you die.
Yeah, they're incredible, and they have to deal with so much crap from humans along the way, light pollution, because they navigate via the stars. So when they go near cities, they get disoriented. A lot of them crash into buildings. And
they navigate via the stars.
Yeah.
That's
how
birds
they also
navigate
use the
via the
magnetic
stars?
field.
They look up and they see, that's the Big Dipper? Let's go that way?
Hang a left at the Big Dipper. Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of them migrate at night. Some things like raptors, birds of prey, migrate during the day a lot of the time. So some birds use the magnetic field of the Earth to navigate by, which they figured out by strapping magnets to the heads of homing pigeons, I think, and finding out that they couldn't stay on course with a magnet strapped to their heads.
Wow. That is so cool. Well, listen, I could talk to you all day. I'd like to talk to you again because I know you also have spend a fair amount of time or half your time down in Central America and Costa Rica also. So maybe we do another show where we talk about what you're doing down there. There's a lot of amazing pictures on your Instagram of some of the wildlife that you've captured on camera traps down there. We can talk about that in another episode, but I just appreciate you taking half an hour to talk to me. I know we said we'd talk for about 20 minutes, but I like to keep the shows kind of focused, and that was amazing. How are you talking to me? Are you talking to me on Skype, and is there cell service up there? And how are you able to get the electronic communication up there in the middle of nowhere going? Is there cell towers?
There's no cell towers in this area. There's a fiber optic internet line that runs all the way up the Dalton Highway, I believe. So we're tied into that. So I'm calling you over Wi-Fi with the Skype app on my phone.
Yeah, because it's crystal clear. I mean, you sound clearer than most of my calls. I'm actually realizing I'm going to have to start. I'm going to have to start actually in telling people to use Skype, because this is so much better than a phone line. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to be connected because we are pretty remote, and it would be a lot more difficult to be, separated from my wife for several months at a time if I couldn't talk to her every day. So we talk in the morning and in the evening, and that's a nice way to bookend the day and still be connected and not get totally isolated and loopy up here.
So your wife is at your home in Costa Rica?
Yep. Yeah, she's gardening and we grow coffee. She's processing coffee and
wow.
Just yeah. So we're both in good places. She's in a pretty isolated little village and I'm up here, so we're both in good spots to ride this thing out. And I usually go see her in July for a couple of weeks, and so we'll see if that's able to happen, but we're hoping so. And in the meantime, yeah, it's not a bad place to be to go out every day and look for wildlife and try to write about it and photograph it and just leave a good record for the future.
Is there anything that you really, really hope to encounter? Something that you really, really want to see that you haven't seen?
I've seen everything here, all the mammals, all the birds pretty much, but I think the lynx and the wolf encounter in the past couple of weeks, those were both kind of top 10 moments. And I've been doing wildlife field work since 2003, I guess. So it's been really special to have a couple of moments like that just in the last couple of weeks. But wolverines are up here, and I've only ever seen 2 in 10 years of working in this particular area. So I've got a camera trap on one of the caribou carcasses that the wolf killed, and I'm hoping maybe a wolverine is somewhere out there sniffing the wind and will find his way to that, because that's probably the hardest animal to see up here.
It's just amazing. It's amazing talking to you. I'm jealous of what you're doing right now and envious of what you're experiencing. I would love to be able to just spend some time up there and photograph and look for animals in the middle of nature and get away from this crazy world we're living in for a minute. It really, really must be a incredible experience for you, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today, Seth.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. This was great, and good luck to everybody who's dealing with difficult situations. And yeah, let the experts figure it out and get things going again when the time is right. So until then, if anybody enjoys seeing wildlife and reading about it, they can check out the links there that Tom will post. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Seth Beaudreault, thank you so much. I appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you, Tom. This is fun.
And now, I just should say this again. You're from, where are you from? Are you from Canada? Or you're from Boston? You're from Boston, right?
Yeah, from Westford, Massachusetts. Westford, as it would say.
Because I see Beaudreault and I'm thinking, oh, this guy must be French-Canadian. But no, not at all. You know?
Yeah, for better or worse, yeah. Masshole.
Very cool. So you're from the Massachusetts.
Yep.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Seth, for talking to me today, and it's been great getting to know you, and look forward to talking again soon, okay?
Sounds good, Tom. Take care, man.
Thank you, Seth Beaudreault, and thank you for listening to the Tom Green Podcast. You can follow Seth Beaudreault on Instagram. His Instagram is really cool, as we talked about, all of these amazing pictures, and he's updating them regularly. It is Seth Beaudreault is spelled SethBeaudrault. So go to Instagram, put that into the search, at Seth Beaudreault, SethBeaudrault. I would love you to have a look at his photos and follow him. He's up there doing some important work and helping us look after our environment. So hats off to you, Seth. Be safe up there. And everyone else, follow me on Instagram. Follow me on YouTube. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but I've been doing some interesting and innovative, for me, stuff on my Instagram and on my YouTube page. So go to youtube.com/TomGreen and follow along. Be safe, everyone.